Hey, landlords. I wanted to weigh in on this topic. It just hit the media. Everyone's talking about it right now. Landlords are wondering what is going on. Is this going to help me? Is this good for the industry? Tenants also confused, don't know what's going on. The tenants who don't pay rent and make it a habit of not paying rent, they're going to really hate what is coming if they're actually going to be following through with promises here, which we hope that they do. The non-payment of rent is a mess in this industry. It needs to change. Everyone knows this. I don't know why it's happening now. Should have happened years ago. And so, it's good that it's being talked about now. And this is why I think that it's important that we go ahead and we start talking about this topic. And, I think it's very important. This fighting delays bill and Faster Act. Hopefully, they really do start listening to landlords, which they claim here, but hopefully, they actually really do because it's important because we are the ones suffering. And, we have to make sure that this industry is helping landlords because at the end of the day, without landlords, tenants are not going to have places to live. So, let's just jump right into this. And I'm going to give
Well,
my
good afternoon,
opinions
everyone.
shortly,
Thank you for joining
and
us
we'll go from there.
today. It's my
So I'll just skip right through to the section when they start talking about the landlord and tenant board.
new measures to boost ongoing efforts to address delays and reduce backlogs at the landlord-tenant board, and part of our plan to protect Ontario by helping to balance the rights and responsibilities of landlords and tenants.
Balance the rights, right? So this should be happening, years ago, but it's great that we're talking about it now.
Together, we are taking action to protect Ontario and ensure continuing prosperity for everyone. I'd now like to turn the podium over to Minister Sercaria for some remarks.
Okay, so they talked about a bunch of other items here, so I'm just going to skip through this right to the section that they actually start talking about it.
Back to what we were told this morning about the government consulting on alternative options, essentially that could allow landlords to end leases. I think this is a question best for the Attorney General. Just wondering what you are looking at there.
Well, we've heard from stakeholders that these evergreen leases that just go on with no end in sight may not be the appropriate. Other jurisdictions, when we did a scan across the country, do different things, but we weren't confident that we had the answer, and we only want to move with confidence. So we're going to go back out and talk to landlords and tenants and their organizations and see if there's a better way for the people of Ontario to unlock that housing that isn't happening now.
But that's housing that people are in. They're tenants, right?
So I actually don't even know what he's saying here. Let me just rewind this again, just so I can clearly understand. He's talking about evergreen leases. These are things that are, we really don't talk about, amongst landlords, etc. But what he means is leases that automatically renew for successive periods, so such as month to month after the original lease expires. So let me just go ahead and listen to this and see what he's talking about here.
I think this is a question best for the Attorney General. Just wondering what you are looking at there.
Well, we've heard from stakeholders that these evergreen leases that just go on with no end in sight may not be the appropriate. Other jurisdictions, when we did a scan across the country,
may not be appropriate. So I don't know any other details. I guess I'm going to have to take a look around to see what exactly they're talking about. But if they're referring to, the lease at the end of the period being the end of the lease, I mean, I don't think this is a great thing for marketplace either. I don't think it's great for landlords. I don't think it would be great for tenants. Although if we have a tenant that we don't like and for whatever reason, we can end that tenancy. But I don't know if that's what they're talking about here or if this is something that they're even looking to propose. But I don't think this would be a great thing for landlords and even for tenants as well. I don't think it'd be a great thing because, in our day-to-day lives, people don't connect the right way and we might not like somebody because of their favorite color. And, I don't think that it would be fair to just be able to end a lease. And also for landlord, it's going to be difficult for us because as many properties as I have and how many tenants I have, it would be really difficult for me when you're dealing with hundreds of tenants to know that after you have so many tenants, you're going to have a lease ending almost every single day of the year. And, imagine how busy this is going to be. It's going to create absolute chaos. So I guess I just need to see exactly what they're proposing here because I don't really know.
Do different things, but we weren't confident that we had the answer, and we only want to move with confidence. So we're going to go back out and talk to landlords and tenants and their organizations and see if there's a better way for the people of Ontario to unlock that housing that isn't happening now.
But that's housing that people are in. They're tenants, right? It's hard to see a world in which, if you're giving landlords more power to end leases, that they're not going to want to get in a tenant that will pay more. So is this not inevitably going to end up with higher rents, more people getting kicked out of their rentals?
We're going to consult widely on it. What we do know is there are a lot of landlords that are not putting their units on the market. We need to get those units.
So let me just rewind this again. Get these comments here.
See a world in which
to unlock that housing that isn't happening now.
that's housing that people are in. They're tenants, right? It's hard to see a world in which, if you're giving landlords more power to end leases, that they're not going to want.
It's hard to see a world that we're giving landlords more power. Oh boy.
To get in a tenant that will pay more. So is this not inevitably going to end up with higher rents, more people getting kicked out of their rentals?
We're going to consult widely on it.
How would
What
that
we do know
make
is there
higher
are a lot
rents?
of landlords that are not putting their units on the market. We need to get those units. I'm convinced if we get the right balance, we'll unlock tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of new units. And those will be places that people that currently don't have a place to be will be able to rent.
Oh, sorry, you're saying that if landlords, there are some landlords that if there are more flexible types of agreements that they would be willing to rent currently unrented spaces.
I've been told that repeatedly for years, that
Who
they're
is this
not
guy?
putting their units on the market. We need to get those units. I'm convinced if we get the right balance, we'll unlock tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of new units.
Yeah, you need to
And
get
those
the
will be
right balance.
places-
This eviction process is horrible. And the amount of evictions right now and non-payment of rents is just ridiculous. And it should not happen this way. If things were streamlined and they're pushed along much faster, which they're proposing here, I'm going to touch on that in a little bit. But it doesn't look like they're touching on this here in this conference here. But yes, if that happens, then, there's going to be more landlords in this marketplace. There's going to be more landlords who want to invest in properties because it's not such high risk. If we can have properties where we have tenants and they don't pay rents and we can push an eviction really fast, number one is that tenants are really going to think about not paying rents because now they can't sit in these properties for months on end, for 3, 4, 5 months and then get adjournments for whatever idiotic, stupid reason that they're allowed to do. So yes, it's a no brainer. So, talk to landlords. And if you have to say this, you haven't even done that yet. So, you should already know what's going on in this marketplace because it is not fair. So yes, you're absolutely right. If you find the equal balance here, then yes, you're going to have so many landlords who are wanting to buy more rental properties and treat it as an investment and not put their money into the banks and put them into real estate instead. So, you're eliminating a big, big chunk of the market of landlords who are willing to do this. But right now, it's more challenging.
But people that currently don't have a place to be will be able to rent.
So, sorry, you're saying that if landlords, there are some landlords that if there are more flexible types of agreements that they would be willing to rent currently unrented space.
Obviously,
I've
yes.
been told that repeatedly for years, that some
I've been
landlords
told that. Well, you guys should already know
market
this.
because they don't have confidence in it.
Minister Sarkaria, could you talk a bit more about the changes to commercial licensing and what is the problem that you're trying to solve here?
Yeah. So, whatever this meant, there's going to be more information coming out yet. This is really small blip of information and details here. I did take the article here and I did kind of take a look at what else I can find online. I didn't really find too much yet, but maybe sometime this afternoon I will. But just right here on the CTV News, changes to landlord and tenant disputes. So the bill is proposing a number of changes when it comes to disputes between landlords and tenants. Among other things, tenants would be required to give prior notice of issues they intend to raise at hearings and would not be allowed to introduce new issues without warning. The province says this is to avoid adjournments, where the parties aren't prepared to speak to the issue. So technically, this should be happening. On paper, it is happening, but, when we're going to hearings for non-payment of rents, L1s, tenants sometimes are going to be bringing up, damages or different things wrong with their unit. And, sometimes, it depends on the adjudicator with that scenario and that situation. So I strongly agree, because if we're going to a hearing for an L1 process, non-payment of rent, it should be strictly the L1 process, non-payment of rent. So if the tenant has any evidence, then they would have to bring this evidence forward before it is heard at a hearing. And, if it wasn't brought forward, then it shouldn't even be heard. So yeah, I agree with this. It should already be happening. On paper it is, but in reality it's not. So, this is not fair, and this is going to help streamline, of course, adjournment. So, I mean, if the adjudicator, feels like there's weight on whatever damages and, wants to wait and allow the tenant to give more evidence, et cetera, whatever the case may be. I've seen these things happening, and yeah, it's not fair. So, and adjournments should not be something where they're just handing out like cookies. It should be really serious reasons for adjournments. It's not fair. So at so many different times, tenants are just going and, saying, oh, my phone didn't work, or I couldn't connect to the internet. And, I don't think this is acceptable. This has to be a serious matter. And, I think that needs to change. So hopefully what they're saying here is true, and that these things are going to happen, and we're only going to see what happens in the near future. I hope. Um, the bill would also scrap the need for a landlord to offer a tenant compensation if they would like to take their property back for their own use, as long as they give 120 days notice. If the landlord gives less than that, they would still be required to provide 1 month's rent, or offer compensation, or offer a comparable unit as compensation. So yeah, 120 days. I mean, right now it's 60 days, so it's double the time. I mean, if the landlord wants to expedite in N12, then yeah, they would pay the 1 month's rent. So let's see. I want to see more details coming out with this to give more thoughts on what is happening here. But this could be a good thing and a bad thing for landlords. I feel also, honestly speaking, on an N12 where a landlord wants the property themselves, I don't disagree with having to pay a tenant 1 month's rent. Because we are moving these tenants out of the units where maybe they want to stay longer. They're on month-to-month tenancies now, and maybe they don't have any plans of moving anytime soon. And if we're going to be uprooting their lives and changing it, then I agree that they would be entitled to some compensation. So I really don't have a problem with that. I know, many landlords are going to disagree with me with this topic, but, I'm one who believes what's fair is fair. So on both sides of the fence, I always look at things, and, especially with our evictions, we evict a lot of tenants, and we evict a lot of tenants based on monetary gains for the landlords. And in these situations, I truly believe that everyone must win. And that's just what I believe in. But yeah, I think that, I think that we need to get more details on this. And I'll just give another scenario here. I was just showing a property not long ago, a couple weeks ago, and it was an elderly couple, and they wanted to have a 5-year lease. And that's because that they're elderly. They sold their home a couple of years ago. They have a bunch of money in savings in their bank, and they don't want to have to uproot in the next 5 years. And they actually wanted to have like a 10-year lease, but the landlord says, no, absolutely not. I'm not signing a 5-year lease. I don't want the tenant there that long. I just want to do a 1-year lease. So this is kind of what the tenant was asking, what they wanted to do, right? So, and I understood the tenant and what they wanted. I mean, I totally get it. They're elderly. They don't want to move. They want to sit here, possibly for the rest of their lives. So, now if they choose a property and they have a 1-year lease, and then it becomes month to month, and that landlord wants to move out, I understand that, they need to be given a little bit more time, which is the 120 days notice. But also on the other hand, they won't get any money, which is the 1 month's rent. So, But yeah, let's wait till more details come out with this, and we'll chat more on that. As well, the province wants to shorten the grace period to issue an eviction notice for non-payment of rent from 14 days to 7 days. So yeah, this is if anything, this is the best part of what's coming out, and I truly hope that this actually does happen, because this is going to help. Because now, when we're doing N4s and we're delivering it on the 2nd of the month, we're not getting this out until the 15th before we can get an L1 out, and we're literally a month in, like 30 days in to beginning the process of waiting for a hearing. And I don't think this is right. It's not fair, and it's too long. So if this is true, and this gets, pushed to, bigger and larger desks, I think this is going to be massive for this marketplace. And I think it's going to help a lot of landlords. It's going to streamline it. It's going to make evictions a lot faster. And not only this, it's also going to introduce other landlords back into the game that said for the past several years, says, I don't want to be a landlord. I'm selling everything. I'm getting out of this business. I don't want it no more. That's going to change. So these landlords are going to now think, and feel better about joining the marketplace and buying rental properties. So I think this is great. I'm excited to see more details on this. Hopefully it's released soon, and hopefully things get passed really fast on this. Also, I have another thought, and I've been thinking about this for quite some time now. I haven't been public about it, but I know some landlords are not going to agree with this. I don't agree with licensing for many parts, of our business, licensing, like student rentals, things like that. But what if either the landlord, when they have non-payment of rents, they can pay an additional fee? I know we already pay the L1 filing fee, $186, but what if, there could be some type of expedited hearing where they can pay a fee for this, an additional fee, whether it's $55 or $65 or $100, whereas we can get a hearing literally in 30 days. I would pay for that. And I know that so many hundreds of my clients are going to pay for this. And I know so many other landlords are going to pay for this. If it's $100 to expedite a hearing, once we file the L1, where we can just pay for the L1 application and then pay for the expedited hearing. And literally from the moment we serve the N4, we can be at a hearing within 45 days. Yes, I think that should happen. I think that is something where now the Ontario government can have the funding to have more adjudicators, to have more rooms available, to have more hearings that we can do on a regular basis. So I think that would be golden. And I'm all for that. And also, on the same idea is, what if there was a license to be a landlord? Again, this is a really heavy topic to talk about because there's a lot that goes into here, but I don't mean licensing where we need approvals or anything like that. But if this ever happens, then maybe they're going to introduce more things that we have to get through, red tape, etc. But what I'm saying is something along the lines that we can pay into, whether it's $50 a year or $30 a year. And all this does is it streamlines any eviction processes, and it helps out all the other landlords who need to get to an eviction really quickly because the tenants are not paying rent. Or if you have serious situations, which we deal with on a regular basis, where you have tenants who are doing drugs or selling drugs, and then they're in buildings and they're causing disturbances with the other tenants, and they're banging on walls, they're bringing drugs through windows and things like that. So I mean, these scenarios literally should be a notice sent out and a hearing within 45 days. So we need funding for this. And, that makes sense. So anyways, that's what I think. Those are my thoughts. Let's see what else comes out here. And the other thing they're talking about is shortening the time to request a review for a final hearing order from 30 to 15 days. So I agree completely with that as well. But yeah, anyways, that's my thoughts. And let's see what else comes out soon. And for all you landlords out there, keep working hard, keep your head up, stay focused, it looks like things are going to be changing with this soon. At least they're talking about it. So that's a great thing. So I think that us landlords, we need to talk about this. We need to chat about it. We need to share videos like this and other videos. We need to get everybody focused that, the government knows that these changes have to happen. And, just what they said in this video here, that more landlords are going to be joining, going to be buying properties and buying rental properties, especially if this change happens. So, I think that's a great, great thing. So let's see what happens. And landlords, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And happy landlording.